If kindness gets you far in life, why do we feel like it's so hard to come by? I have watched author George Saunders' speech on his biggest regret in life, lacking acts of kindness. It reminded me of myself and many others lacking the bigger picture of being kind. Although it seems cliche, kindness can impact your personal life as well as society, and there is always improvements to be made. Saunders' speech about his failures of kindness being his biggest regret makes us all reflect on our own behaviors, look inward, and ask ourselves how we can be kinder. And remind ourselves, why did it take a speech for us to think of kindness? I will talk about the points made in Saunders' speech and apply them to life today, while giving solutions on how we can be kinder. Who is George Saunders? George Saunders is an author with many credible books released. He gave this speech in 2013 during the commencement ceremony of Syracuse's graduating class. He's on the teaching board there. He gives an example of not being kind to a girl in school and says it still bothers him 42 years later. Saunders goes into his view of why we aren't always kind and shares some insight on how to be kinder. Saunders' view on why there's complexity behind being kind is that society has built-in confusions. These confusions are our personal story, the most important story, that we're separate from the universe, it's our story and everything else, and that we're permanent. Death is real for you, but not for me. He says we're all unconsciously selfish and more focused on our lives than others. His solution explains we all have a spectrum of kindness from our own experiences, good and bad. With that, we can gravitate to the good experiences of kindness. He says, of course, being mindful, educated, aware, etc., helps this path of kindness, but ultimately brings attention to the fact that kindness is not linear. Saunders states getting older means becoming more kind, but be kind now and start early. There's no reason for age to bring such an attribute. After speaking on George Saunders' speech of kindness, I'd like to talk about where we see most issues with the lack of kindness. We most famously see a lack of kindness on social media, as it's easier to be judgmental and naive behind a screen. It may feel as if I'm beating a dead horse. Social media issues have been talked about countless times, but unfortunately, social media is a root source of the lack of kindness. To be aware and conscious of our actions on social media, we can take accountability and take ownership of how we respond and react to others on social media. This accountability not only makes you more aware of your behavior, but it will put the effort in for you to be better. We can also use this speech to reflect on how kind we are in the physical world, not just behind a screen. As I said before, it feels like the social media topic is long overdone. But what about kindness in the real world? As we go through adolescence, we experience the highs and lows of kindness, just as Saunders talks about. We may become bitter towards others and protective of ourselves through the low experiences of kindness. But what about the golden rule? Do one to others as you want done to you. Although you experience lows of kindness in your life, you shouldn't let that affect how your kindness is to others. An act of kindness, as small as holding the door open for a stranger, may go farther than you'll ever know. For example, in the 8th grade, me and my group of friends saw a boy that didn't have a lot of friends. Obviously, he wanted to make more, so we took it upon ourselves to befriend him. I had the chance to have a class with him, and in that class, he and me would pass notes and send silly drawings or even just write little notes that we wanted to talk about during class. Through the years, I've kept these and they've have watermarks and got worn and torn, but I've always remembered them and kept them to remind myself that that act of kindness will go farther for him and for me than we'll ever probably know. In conclusion, this speech by Saunders is highly insightful to us and society and makes us not think about how only we can be better for ourselves, but also for others. Ultimately, kindness is not linear, as there are many factors, but if efforts are being put in, the world as we know it will only get greater. Today, I reviewed George Saunders' commencement speech on kindness and applied it to us through social media and to our day-to-day lives. Personally, as a whole, the lack of kindness needs to end, and we need to become more aware and mindful of others.